Fox 61 News at 10 starts now.
And developing tonight, protests around the country continue to hit major cities, including Boston, Cleveland, and San Diego. They're protesting against ICE enforcement after a woman was shot and killed by an officer this week in Minneapolis. Thank you for joining for us at the Fox 61 News at 10. I'm Stephen Reels. Tonight, new footage captured by an ICE agent is giving the public a new perspective on the deadly shooting, but there's still intense scrutiny over the incident and the investigation. Lee Waldman reports from Minneapolis with the latest development.
Come talk to us later.
Cell phone video captured by an Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent shows a different angle of the moments leading up to the deadly shooting of Renee Good in Minneapolis Wednesday.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you.
The Department of Homeland Security says the new footage confirms the officer was in fear of his own life, the lives of his fellow officers, and acted in self-defense. President Trump weighed in Friday afternoon.
You have agitators, and we will always be protecting ICE, and we're always going to be protecting our Border Patrol and our law enforcement.
The FBI is in charge of the probe, but state and local leaders are still asking to be involved with the investigation.
While I respect the FBI's process, our community's expectations are much different in terms of transparency. To that end, I cannot overstate the importance of a local investigation, or at least access to the federal investigation.
As the city of Minneapolis grapples with the events of this week and the ongoing immigration crackdown, the death of Good is fueling frustration in communities beyond Minnesota.
What do we want? When do we want it?
Advocacy groups say more than 1,000 demonstrations are scheduled this weekend across the country. In Minneapolis, Lee Waldman, Fox 61.
And back here in Connecticut, police are investigating multiple crimes they say happened at yesterday's ICE protest and vigil in downtown Hartford. The vigil was for Renee Good, the woman who we mentioned earlier was shot and killed by an ICE agent in Minneapolis earlier this week. Hartford Mayor Arunan Arulampalam is now calling for an investigation into what happened at the protest, and police are trying to identify who was involved. Fox 61's Celine Arif shares what we know so far.
Right now, police are looking into 3 people's actions from that protest. One who Hartford's mayor says used pepper spray on the crowd. One he says who hit a protester with their vehicle, and someone else the mayor says damaged that same vehicle by shattering a window. The mayor says he believes the person using pepper spray was, quote, in some way affiliated with the federal government.
The city and the Hartford Police Department were, after the protest, made aware of allegations of pepper spray being used, being deployed. The Hartford Police Department didn't themselves deploy pepper spray and weren't aware of the incident as it occurred.
Len Virula was one of the speakers at the protest, and she says she was one of the people who got sprayed.
As I'm walking towards the crowd, I'm sprayed. And now there's people pouring gallons of water in my eyes. All my clothes are soaked. Someone gave me this blanket. The firefighters gave me this blanket.
Hartford police say there were about 10 to 12 uniformed officers working the protest, and they were also working a command center to keep an eye on the crowd. The mayor says about 200 people came to the protest, and it was mostly peaceful except for a small group. They don't believe anybody went to the hospital that night, including the person hit by the vehicle.
At one point, a group of attendees observed some federal employees exiting the rear of the building on the Sheldon Street side and attempted to obstruct their exit. One of those vehicles that we believe was driven by a federal employee made contact with a protester, knocking them to the ground.
The mayor says they're looking into these claims just like they would any other hit and run, assault case, and property destruction case. Adam Antar is with the Muslim Justice Center, one of the groups that supported the protest. He says the community needs to take something away from what happened here in Hartford.
I think that this poses an opportunity for us to look critically at what we as community members need to do in order to make sure that we are keeping ourselves safe.
The mayor shared the Department of Homeland Security is working on their own investigation into what happened at the protest, but says they won't share any information with the city until the investigation wraps up. In Hartford, Celine Arif, Fox 61.
Thank you, Celine. Now, regarding that protester who police say tried to block the vehicle, they haven't said whether that person could face charges and what, if any, role they played in how this escalated. Investigators say they're still working to sort out exactly who did what and in what order. And today, U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal and Governor Ned Lamont held a press conference to speak on the protests in the state. Blumenthal said he believes the protests have mostly been peaceful, with the exception of the violence that took place last night.
You have a First Amendment right to protest, demonstrate, express your views peacefully without interfering with others. And that is by and large what we have seen throughout Connecticut. When people use violence, they undermine their cause. They play into the hands of authoritarian dictators.
Senator Blumenthal emphasized the importance of peaceful protests and said it not only has a role, it's an obligation. But for the latest developments on the Minneapolis ICE shooting and what's happening right here in our state, stay with us on Fox 61 Plus, our free streaming app. And it was a wet start to the weekend, but will that rain stay? Meteorologist Sam Samperi is here with our first check on the forecast. Sam, the million-dollar question, how much longer are we really going to be seeing this thaw and this rain?
Well, first of all, the first batch of rain is done now, and then we'll have another batch tomorrow afternoon into early Sunday. Here's the preview of the weekend. Wetter of the 2 days, of course, tomorrow. But temperatures right now are very mild. We're averaging in the mid to upper 40s. They really haven't gone anywhere due to the southwest wind around here. And we have a little bit of visibility issues here and there, patchy fog around due to the rain that moved on in. And here's one last front. The front's falling apart, and that's it for now. But this will be our weather maker for tomorrow as that system heads up in our direction. So overnight, mainly clear, some patches of fog by tomorrow morning, and then increasing clouds. And then that rain moves in during the afternoon and evening. Temperatures will be again on the mild side in the 40s. Coming up, I will detail how much rain, when it actually comes to an end, and what you can expect Sunday and into next week. And when does the thaw come to an end? I'll have details coming up in a few minutes. Stefan?
I know it'll happen again. It's more than a concern. It's not a prophecy. It's a fact. You can't drive like this on this street.
And we have an update tonight to a story we first brought you at breaking news last night at 10. Bristol police are investigating a deadly hit and run where officers say a bicyclist was struck by two vehicles Thursday evening. One of those drivers took off and police are now searching for them. Fox 61's Valerie Moravi spoke with neighbors in the area who say this keeps happening and now they're demanding action.
Yeah, neighbors tell me this is the second crash on the same road in just 1 week. Now, one person tells me it's devastating that a life was lost, and he believes it's time for officials to step in to make changes. On Friday, police identified the victim as 36-year-old Tommy Palak of Bristol. The crash happened just after 5:30 Thursday evening on Birch Street.
Well, what goes through my mind every time there's an accident on this street, it's unsafe.
At first I didn't know, I thought it was a car accident or whatever, but it wasn't a loud bang, but it was a good bang. But the first, I guess it was the first car that went through. I didn't hear nothing, not even a skid. The second was and the guy stopped and he stayed finally, so that was nice.
They believe the first vehicle to hit the bicyclist was a gray silver Jeep Grand Cherokee that fled the scene immediately. Police then say the victim was trapped under a second vehicle. The driver of the vehicle stayed on the scene and has been cooperating with officials. Paluk was taken to a local hospital for treatment, where he was later pronounced dead. Neighbors in the area say this incident is not the first time. Bruce Barton tells me there are many factors that make this road dangerous.
As you can see, there's no sidewalk on this side of the street. I have to cross the street if I want to walk the dog.
David Stacy says the concerns this could happen again have grown over the years.
People ride up and down the road on the bikes, and they shouldn't.
They're now demanding local officials to step in and take the necessary actions to prevent another fatal accident like this one.
I've asked several times to put radar on the street. There's several places they can use my driveway. I don't care. But there's nothing to impede the traffic. It's a straight line from ESPN all the way to Pine Street.
Oh, just over here at the Four Corners, just people going through. It's a four-way intersection. People going through, there's probably 6 accidents a week. They need a light there and speed bumps here, and I think I got faith that they'll do it eventually, but until then, people are gonna perish.
Now, neighbors tell me they're worried that this could happen again if changes aren't made. We'll continue to keep you updated both on air and online at fox61.com. In Bristol, Valerie Moravi at Fox 61.